In this presentation, I will be explaining the different types of formats of fiction films, narrative structures, visual storytelling, sound, and finally genre and film audiences. Firstly, the formats of fiction film. These include short films for festivals, competitions, showcasing talent, feature-length productions. A short film is a film that varies from 15 to 45 minutes long. For example, the Sundance Film Festival displays short films made by the independent filmmakers to help them get publicity. Next are feature-length films. These are full-length films or productions shown in cinemas or on DVD. TV dramas are TV series that are more serious than humorous. So an example of this would be Luther. Serial dramas are TV shows that end in a cliffhanger before continuing on to the next episode, e.g. Coronation Street. Ongoing narratives are series or sequels that are ongoing. Reoccurring themes are themes that keep occurring. An example of this would be some of Steven Spielberg's movies, e.g. Jurassic Park, E.T. and the BFG are all fantasy/sci-fi themed. Next are the narrative structures. These include motivation of protagonists, narrative models and theories, characterization, stereotypes, stock characters, open and closed narratives, single-strand, multi-strand structures, and finally realist and anti-realist narratives. The protagonist normally has a meaning or reason as to why they want to defeat the villain. For example, in It, they have to defeat Pennywise in order to save all the children in the town. The narrative theory Todorov's narrative states that all narratives follow a three-part structure, starting with an equilibrium, then a disruption, and finally a new equilibrium. Most narrative structures follow this theory. For example, Daniel Blake uses this narrative theory. Characterization is the creation of a fictional character, for example, Pennywise from It. Stereotypes are where there is a fixed belief or widely believed image held over a certain person. For example, in most fictional films there is a dumb blonde girl who everyone wants to die due to her annoying tone and attitude. However, although she escapes death on many occasions, she soon ends up with a graphic death. And stock characters are people you normally find in a certain type of genre. For example, there is always a final girl in horror movies that make it to the end and kill the monster. Closed narratives are when we, the audience, know what happens to the killer by the end of the movie/production, whereas open narratives are when the movie or show ends on a cliffhanger and continues with either a sequel or in the next episode. An example of a closed narrative would be Clown or The Nun, and an example of an open narrative would be The Haunting of Hill House. Single-strand structures are when there is only one clear storyline, which is what most films use. In comparison to this, multi-strand narratives are when there are several different storylines going on in that single episode or film. So, for example, this is what soap operas use. Realist narratives are when the director tries to make the film or production as real as possible for the audience. The opposite of this would be anti-realist narratives, which are where the director make it unrealistic for the audience and wouldn't happen in real life. So an example of a realist narrative would be The Impossible, and for anti-realist narratives, The Nun. Thirdly is visual storytelling. This section includes descriptions and examples of mise-en-scène, camera framing and angles, and lighting. Mise-en-scène creates the mood and ambience of the scene by using elements such as costumes, settings, props and expressions. For example, if a character is wearing a darker costume, they are usually considered as being the evil villain. Whereas if a character is wearing brightly coloured clothes, e.g. Superman, they are normally seen as the hero. This also links in with the setting, as we, the audience, can tell when something bad is about to happen, as the scene uses suspense-building music as well as low-key lighting. These elements are normally used in horrors or thrillers, as they use conventions like abandoned houses and dark lighting. In contrast to this, other genres like comedies use high-key lighting and base themselves in a regular setting like the city. Angles are used in movies and productions to change our perspective on how we view that character. So low angles are used to make the character appear bigger than they actually are. High angles are the opposite of this, as they are taken from high above, so it makes the character seem smaller than they are. Many angles like this are used in Harry Potter to portray them as either a heroic character or make them seem small and weak. Low-key lighting is used when something bad is about to happen, so it builds suspension. Shadows are also used to create tension in films such as horror movies, for example, The Purge. Diegetic sound is sound that comes from within the film. For example, the dialogue of the actors speaking counts as diegetic sound. Non-diegetic sound is the sound that actors cannot hear from within the film, so for example, a theme tune or background music. Finally is genre and film audience. This includes film genres, generic characteristics of horrors and rom-coms, audience expectations and generic subversions. Genre is the way movies are separated from one another. Some examples of this include horror, comedy, thriller, rom-coms, etc. The generic characteristics of horror movies use elements such as jump scares, low-key lighting, abandoned settings, and a monster or demon. However, on the other hand, the generic characteristics of rom-coms include happy endings, romance, cheesy meetups, light-hearted, and also a bit comedic. A generic subversion of a horror film would mean that the initial ending of what the audience would expect is the opposite. For example, in The Conjuring, towards the end of the film they got rid of the demon. However, at the very end of the film we find out the demons are still there. Another example of this would be Insidious. This is the same for rom-coms, as we expect for a happy ending where the two characters get together. However, in the generic subversion they do not end up together, e.g. 500 Days of Summer. In the opening scene of Muschietti, low-key lighting has been used throughout. This is to ensure that we, the audience, were to focus on whatever the main object is in the frame. So, for example, in this opening scene we are focused on Georgie and his boat, and then the focus changes to Pennywise and Georgie. This is an effective technique as it adds to the suspension of what is about to happen. The sound used in this scene also helps build suspension and puts the audience on the edge of their seats, ready for whatever is going to happen. This is a technique that all horror films use because the combination of the dramatic sound/music and low-key lighting gets the audience adrenaline running until the element of surprise kicks in, e.g. a jump scare. Muschietti also puts Georgie in a bright yellow raincoat and portrays him as being happy and joyous from playing in the rain. This shows his innocence as a child and how unexpected it is. Pennywise has also been placed in the sewer for this scene, which is unusual for a horror film, as most are set in abandoned settings. This makes the audience feel vulnerable and unsafe as sewers and drains are everywhere in the roads compared to abandoned houses or castles, so it makes them question whether a clown will be there or not. Lots of panning shots and bird's eye view angles have been used in this scene. I believe these were used to show how small Georgie is, which again shows his vulnerability and weakness as a child compared to the roads and cars. The use of stylistic codes shows some traditional aspects of horrors in this scene, however not very many. For example, the use of it being set in a sewer is not a traditional horror convention, which is what makes it different from the others. The target audience of it would be teenagers to adults, as it is appealing to most age groups due to its use of untraditional elements. In the ending scene to it, music has been added to make them appear more heroic when cutting open their hands and making a blood promise to each other. As well as this, the director has used low-angle shots to make them all appear bigger than they are and portray them as heroes. The end scene has been set in a field where only the group of friends are found, so this could suggest that it is their secret hiding spot away from everyone else. When being edited, lots of cuts too have been used when Beverly is telling the story. This is so that the audience can see each character's reaction to when she is telling the story. They are also all wearing normal clothes with a few cuts and bruises to show that they fought hard to defeat Pennywise. Another element used in this scene is shallow focus. It is used when the camera is panning around all of their hands when they're making the blood vow. The use of shallow focus is significant as it makes the audience direct their attention to it. Once again, music has been used to build up the suspension of when Bill kisses Beverly, which draws in the audience and makes them feel happy as he has finally built up the courage to kiss her. Again, these conventions are not normally used at the ending of a horror, so this is where King has made it unique. In the opening scene of Hitchcock's Psycho, you are straight away hit with the tense music, which then suggests to the audience that it is a horror and puts them on edge from the very start. It then calms down once the credits are finished, and it shows a panning/establishing shot of the location of where it is set. This then eases the audience as the music is calmed down and it cuts to shots of the actors. The use of low-key lighting also adds to the atmosphere of the scene and makes the audience feel more aware of what is going on in the scene. The setting also shows no conventions of a horror movie in this scene, as it is shot in a bedroom in a city based in Arizona, which again eases the audience. There is not a wide range of shots and angles used in this scene, however many mid-shots have been used along with high angles. This combination of shots and angles go well for this particular scene as not much has happened yet, so therefore it is relaxing the audience into the movie without creating too much drama. This shows that Psycho does not convey the ideas and conventions of a traditional horror movie, which is what makes it different from other horror movies. Behind shots have also been used in this scene where both actors' faces cannot be seen, which would not usually be seen in a modern 21st film. In the ending scene to Psycho, both high and low angles have been used. A low angle was always used when the camera was on the psychiatrist, which could suggest that the director was trying to make him seem bigger than he actually is, because he was the leader in that room. This means that because he had figured out why Norman Bates had been like he was, everyone else in the room was intrigued to hear what he was saying, which is also why no one else speaks very much. It also links with how they used the low angles on everyone else when the camera was on them. This was to make them seem smaller and more vulnerable compared to the psychiatrist. Low-key lighting has also been used to build up a suspenseful atmosphere when explaining Norman's difficulties. This makes the audience also feel small and vulnerable because they too do not know why Norman acted like he did. So they, like the other actors in this scene, have to sit and listen to the psychiatrist's reasoning. No music has been used in this scene, only the use of dialogue from the actor speaking, which is what makes it more dramatic as it shows that it is serious. The stylistic codes used in this scene are not the standard elements that would be seen at the end of a horror film. Both It and Psycho have many similarities and differences between each other. Starting with the similarities, they both use low-key lighting. This is an important element of mise-en-scene for a horror film as it creates shadows and tension due to its mysterious and dark atmosphere. It also sets the tone and mood and creates a dangerous enigma using shadows. Another similarity between the two is that they both use tense suspense-building music. It uses music where Georgie finds himself at the sewer about to take the boat back from Pennywise, and Psycho uses music at the very start of the movie with the credits. So both these movies use music to build up suspension just at different times throughout the scenes. Now on to the differences. Firstly, the settings are very different. In the beginning scene of It is based on the streets and in a sewer with a child as the main focus of the scene, whereas Psycho is set in a room in Arizona with two adults, which does not convey to the traditional horror conventions. Next, on to costumes. There is a clear difference in the costumes within the beginning scenes of these two films. For example, Psycho has very little clothing in this scene, and when the actors do eventually put clothes on, their choice of clothing suggests that they are both part of the working class. Thirdly is the shots and angles. It uses lots of panning shots, close-ups, mid-shots and bird's-eye view angles, whereas Psycho uses only mid-shots and high angles to cast the scene. Next is the performance. It uses a young boy as the main actor in the opening scene playing harmlessly in the rain with his boat, which shows his innocence against Pennywise the clown. Psycho uses a man and a woman in a room with not much performance as they are only talking and kissing and not doing much else. Finally, the last difference between these two films in the opening scene is the editing. It has very smoothly flowing editing up until the part where Georgie's boat is lost down the sewer. This is when lots of cuts too has been used, which also help build the atmosphere and create an enigma. In both the ending scenes, there are no similarities between the two movies. So one of the differences we see is that It uses high-key lighting, whereas Psycho still uses low-key lighting. This could suggest that the worst part for the children in It is over, whereas it may not be over for the characters in Psycho. A second difference is that in the scene, Psycho uses no background music, only dialogue from the actors, which could suggest that the scene is serious. In comparison to this, It uses music to help create a heroic atmosphere when the kids are making a blood vow. Another dissimilarity is yet again Psycho is set in a room, which still does not convey to any traditional horror conventions. Yet It is now set in a field, which seems to be isolated from the rest of the public. Next on to the angles. It applies low angle shots, two shots and shallow focus to this scene, and Psycho uses both high and low angles alongside mid shots. This shows that It is more advanced with the shot types and angles compared to Psycho, as they don't use any other shots apart from mid shot. They are also wearing normal clothes in It to make it seem more realistic for the audience, and they also use fake blood for when they are cutting their hands. Whereas Psycho has all the men in suits and the women in a dress, so they are all dressed formally. Finally, the editing in It flows smoothly again, which could suggest that the worst part is over for them and they can relax. And Psycho uses lots of cut twos, with the main focus being on the psychiatrist as he has all the knowledge about Norman Bates. I believe that the primary target audience for these genres are 13 and plus because some movies have more conventions of horror and they have a wider range of stylistic codes used throughout the film compared to other horror movies, e.g. Psycho. It is somewhat conventional to the horror genre because it uses stock characters like the final girl and stylistic codes such as jump scares and low-key lighting to affect the audience. Whereas Psycho contributes very little to no extent towards the horror genre because based on from the opening scene and closing scene, there shows no sign of traditional horror movie conventions or stylistic codes, and there is not even any stereotypical stock characters. In the opening scene to Barefoot in the Park, happy music is played in the background of their carriage ride to the Plaza Hotel. This is when we also find out that they are going to the Plaza for their honeymoon, which could suggest why they cannot keep themselves off each other during this scene. The man is wearing a suit and the woman is wearing a posh dressing coat, which doesn't convey to the traditional conventions of a wedding. We can also see from this scene that the woman is quite controlling in the relationship and likes to be in charge. However, we see this changes by the end of the movie. There is use of lots of mid-shots, specifically when they are going into the hotel room, and the shot remains focused on their room door and shows a pile of newspapers building up outside their room. This is when we find out that they have not left their room the whole time they have been there. High-key lighting is also used so that no shadows are created, and so the audience know that it's a light-hearted film. The movie also does not use the traditional conventions of a rom-com film, as they get married at the start of the film and stay together throughout, whereas a normal rom-com would be that the two people meet and gradually fall in love and get married at the end of the movie. In the ending scene to Barefoot in the Park, we can see that his suit is all dishevelled and ruined. We then find out from his performance and the way he is acting that he has been drinking. He also turns controlling and demanding, which shows how things that have changed from the start of the movie, where she was in control and demanding. However, the woman does take back control by the end of the scene. High and low angles have both been used when he is up on the roof. A low angle has been used looking up at the actor on the roof to make him appear higher up than he actually is, and a high angle has been used when looking down onto her to make the audience feel as if they are in his shoes. Tense music has also been added for dramatic effect at the part where he is on the roof to build an atmosphere and put the audience on edge. Long shots have also been used in the roof shot to show how high up he is on the building. An extreme long shot has been used along with a low angle when both actors are up on the roof. This is to give the impression that they are up much higher on the building, which also adds to the dramatic atmosphere. At the end of the scene, cheerful music is also used to celebrate that she saved him and they are safe. This shows how strong their marriage is and what she's willing to do for him. In the beginning scene to the romantic comedy Just Go With It, many stylistic codes have been used. To start with, high-key lighting has been used, which straight away tells us there is no intention of jump scares or monsters in the film. The first shot of the scene displays an establishing shot of the temple with limos outside and lots of people dressed in suits or dresses. It then cuts to the inside of the temple where the audience can confirm that it is a wedding as we see the bride in her dress with her bridesmaids. At this moment, happy music is being played in the background as weddings are associated with happiness. This makes the audience also content as it is a cheerful way to start the movie. However, the atmosphere soon changes when a use of a zoom-in technique to show the actor's tears and expression is used alongside sad, sympathetic music at the part where the groom overhears the bride and bridesmaids talking about him and how she cheated on him. It very quickly changes the atmosphere of the movie as well as the audience feelings towards the characters at this point. Non-diegetic sound is then brought into the scene as the main character starts narrating from this point onward, which makes it clearer for the audience to understand. Diegetic music is also heard in the background in the next shot as the setting is changed to a bar. This makes it more realistic for the audience, as if it were just the actor speaking it would seem staged and unreal. Many different shot types and angles have been used throughout this scene to give off the best shot of the actors when filming. For example, shallow focus has been used when he is sitting on the chair looking at his wedding ring. The focus changes from the ring on his finger to the expression on his face, which draws the audience's attention towards it. The use of stylistic codes does not seem conventional for a rom-com so far, as not much romance has occurred yet. The primary target audience for this movie would be teens/young adults, as the humour is appropriate for this age range compared to older adults. In the ending scene to Just Go With It, again high-key lighting has been used so that no shadows are created. A beach setting has also been used, which adds more romance to the scene and creates a relaxing atmosphere. The use of non-diegetic music has been added to help build up to the moment in which they kiss. Over-the-shoulder shots and close-ups have been used in this scene to show the expression of both actors while he confesses his love. At this part, the actress is in denial that he loves her and thinks that she is not good enough for him. This makes it more realistic and relatable for the viewers. It also makes the audience feel happy as both actors are joyful and end up together. Zoom-in techniques have been used for intensity and to show the expression of both actors before they kiss, which is effective because the audience can then predict what is going to happen next. It then cuts to in the future where it shows him at a wedding again. This is when the diegetic sound of the narrator comes back, which links back to the beginning of the movie. There are quite a few similarities between both Just Go With It and Barefoot in the Park, starting with the fact that they both use high-key lighting. This confirms to the audience that it is a light-hearted, comedic film with no aspects or conventions of horrors. Another similarity is that both rom-coms open with there either being a wedding or a wedding has just happened. This sets the atmosphere for the movie and straight away makes the audience feel joyous because the movie starts off happy. This also means that the costumes are the same or similar, as both movies are associated with weddings and most weddings include suits or tuxedos and white dresses. In the opening scene to Just Go With It, basic makeup is used on the female actresses and the FX prosthetics is used on the man to make him appear to have a bigger nose. This may have been used to make the audience have a more sympathetic approach to him, so when he finds out his fiancée cheated on him before the wedding, it gives off a better audience reaction. Basic makeup is also used on the female actress in Barefoot in the Park, which is another similarity. Most camera angles and shots are the same in both films too. For example, mid-shots, zoom-outs, long shots and eye-level angles have all been used in the opening scene to both these rom-coms, which makes us change our perspective on the characters or setting, etc. Happy music has also been used at some point within the opening scenes of both these movies, as like I previously said, both scenes open with a wedding or are associated with a wedding, which reflects the happiness in music. A final similarity that has been used in both these romantic comedies is the editing. Smoothly flowing editing has been used, which could link to the genre of the movies, as rom-coms are stereotypically cheesy and romantic, and they're also light-hearted and flow easily, which reflects how they are both edited. Next on to the differences. There are not many differences between the two films, however there is one or two. To start with, the performances juxtapose a lot. For example, in Just Go With It, we as an audience feel very sympathetic towards the main character at the start of the scene as he finds out he has been cheated on, which makes us feel sorry for him, and then we see him use his wedding ring as a way to sleep with other women, which we would normally see as inhumane and cruel. However, given his situation and the sympathy we feel towards him, we don't feel that way. Whereas, on the other hand, in Barefoot in the Park, the newly wedded couple can't keep their hands off each other and just want to spend time with one another. A second difference is, although they are both associated with weddings, in Just Go With It, they're also based in a bar, which is where he goes to pick up his women. A final difference is the music. Both movies include happy, upbeat music at some point in their opening scenes, but Just Go With It also includes sad music to make the scene appear more dramatic, and it also uses diegetic music from where they're in the bar, and it is playing in the background to add more atmosphere. In the ending scene to both Just Go With It and Barefoot in the Park, there are only two similarities between the movies. Starting with that they both use high-key lighting. This is to show the audience that it is still light-hearted and comedic. The other similarity is that they again both use basic makeup despite the fact in Just Go With It they are at their own wedding. Now on to the differences. Firstly, the costumes juxtapose each other. This is because in Barefoot in the Park, the actor's suit is dishevelled and ripped due to him being drunk, but the woman seems to be wearing a nice, not very casual dress. In comparison to this, beachwear is worn by the actors in the first half to the ending scene of Just Go With It, but in the second half, suits and dresses are worn as they are at a wedding. This links back to the beginning as the opening scene started with a wedding also. This also means that the performance is very different between the two films, as in one of them, he is acting very drunk and like a child, and his wife has to look after him, whereas the other actors are very happy and in love, which is why they get married. Thirdly is the settings. One of these rom-coms is set on a romantic beach in Hawaii, then cuts to a wedding temple where they get married, and the other is set in their apartment and on their apartment roof, which is not romantic. Different shots and angles have also been used. For example, in Just Go With It, over-the-shoulder shots, mid-shots and close-ups have all been used to show the expression of both the actors' faces. Shallow focus is also used when they are dancing to make them the main focus on the screen. Barefoot in the Park uses high angles and low angles when he is on the roof to make it appear that he is a lot higher up than he actually is. Extreme long shots are also used to show the audience how tall the building is and how high above the ground he was, which adds to the drama of the scene. Different sounds have also been used, which separates the two films from one another. Relaxing sounds, e.g. beach waves, have been used in the background along with diegetic dialogue, as well as the build-up of music, which makes the atmosphere more romantic. Whereas on the other hand, suspense-building music has been used in Barefoot in the Park when he is up on the roof, which is untraditional for a rom-com, especially towards the ending. Finally, the editing. Smoothly flowing editing has been used in Just Go With It to reflect the happy ending, whereas it does not flow very smoothly in the other film due to the tense situation the actors find themselves in. The primary target audience for both these romantic comedies, I believe, is 13 and up. This is because it is an easy watching film with no scary horror conventions, only cheesy romance. I feel that Just Go With It is very conventional to the rom-com genre, as it holds all the stereotypical conventions of a romantic comedy, including the narrative structure and ending. However, in comparison to this, Barefoot in the Park is only somewhat conventional to the romantic comedy genre. This is because of the ending scene, as at the end of the movie the husband gets drunk and goes up on the roof where he almost kills himself, and his wife must save him before he jumps or accidentally falls. This is very untraditional and is never normally found in rom-coms. One of the first differences between the horror and rom-com genre is that there is no gore or jump scares in romantic comedies. This is because rom-coms are associated with cheesy romance and horrors have dark, scary settings with tense music to set the atmosphere. There is also no/little comedy in horror movies, but quite a bit in romantic comedies, hence the genre title. This again helps build the atmosphere for all the movies in each genre. The music and sounds are also highly different. Tense and suspense-building music as well as sound effects and jump scares are used in horror movies, whereas light-hearted, happy music and sometimes sad music is used at the disruption part of the rom-com. Lots of blood and gory makeup is used in horrors to make more of an impact on the audience, and basic makeup is used in romantic comedies to make it more realistic. Another key difference is the difference in lighting. Low-key lighting is used in all horrors to create shadows and add drama to the atmosphere, whereas rom-coms use high-key lighting to give a more cheerful and lively look. It is also used to help make the actors appear more attractive and glowing. Now onto the similarities. Lots of establishing shots are used in both genre movies, but with very different motives. They are used to set the location and give the audience an insight as to where the movie takes place, which is effective because it makes the audience more comfortable when watching the movie. Another shot type used in both romantic comedies and horrors is close-ups. This is to show clearly what the expression of the actor is, which adds to the atmosphere of the movie, and if used correctly, can also make the audience react or feel something in a certain way towards someone or something. Both these movie genres also use the same/similar costumes, which are normally everyday clothing. This is to make the movie as realistic as possible for the audience, however with the exception of unique clothing used for the monsters in horrors. Next is the secondary characters. Although none of the main characters are the same, both genres have similar secondary characters. For example, in It, there are characters such as nerds and geeks, which they refer to themselves as the loser club, as well as bullies and other stereotypical categories you typically find in a movie. And in rom-coms, such as The Kissing Booth or To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which are also set in high schools, they too have characters such as nerds and bullies, which is a similarity there. A fifth resemblance is that there is also romance included in both genres. It is used in horrors normally when a monster is killed and they can have a happy ending, e.g. It and Psycho, or even in some cases when the actor falls in love with the monsters, e.g. The Fly or Dracula. As well as this, they both use female protagonists as their main characters, but just portray them differently. For example, in horrors, the female is usually the last one to survive, referred to as the final girl, and has to defeat the monster herself. And in rom-coms, the female falls in love with the man, only for something bad to go wrong and lose each other, and then end up again together and live happily ever after. Finally, the last similarity is that the first two narrative structures are the same, so equilibrium and disruption are the same. The reason why only the first two narrative structures are the same is because near enough all movies start out the same with the introduction of the characters, and then it moves on to disruption, where something goes wrong, and depending on the film genre, the characters either resolve the problem and make a new equilibrium, or the problem is only partially repaired and could become broken again. I feel that the romantic comedy genre has stuck to its conventions very well, with the occasional movie that ends differently, which is very rare. This is because no matter how many times we as an audience watch the rom-com genre, due to its simple yet well-loved storyline, we will always enjoy watching them. Whereas on the other hand, I believe that the horror genre has only stuck to its conventions to some extent. This is because with the horror genre, audiences are always wanting to be surprised or scared. So if a plot twist is included in the end or somewhere within the movie, which means not sticking to its usual conventions, it will leave the audience on the edge of their seat wanting more.